Good morning to you all. I hope that, actually, I'm quite sure that you all got more sleep than I did because I'm still on jet lag USA time. So every night I wake up about 3 o'clock in the morning. I had an idea for this morning. I'm supposed to talk about teaching and training the 4 strokes. Originally, as I had written it, part 1 was going to be about the training, and part 2 was going to be about the teaching of strokes. But when I woke up at 3 o'clock, I thought, I'm going to switch this to the other way around. And I will start with the teaching of strokes. And then about 10:20 or 10:30, we'll take a little break. And then when you come back from your break, we'll talk about writing the workouts. So again, I apologize to the numbers people who have probably been waiting and waiting to hear the numbers, but we will eventually get there. I hope that's okay with everyone. There's one more thing. You'll have to bear with me because I will show you a couple of video clips as I go along. But in order to do that, I have to shut down the PowerPoint, play the videos, and go back and forth. Because I couldn't get the videos. They were too big to fit inside. All right, so you'll just have to bear with me a little bit. But the way I'm going to talk about it, I think it'll be clear why I'm saying what I'm saying when I'm saying it. Okay? Okay. Before I show you anything, I wanted to go over a couple of things that I started to talk about yesterday. All right, now yesterday, in the third thing there, I talked about understanding how the body works. And by that, I mean physical positions that actually enhance movement or make movement strong, as opposed to movements that may look streamlined, but have a weakness in the body. We all remember that, right? Okay. And what I said at the top, I know I also talked about yesterday, and I said, we need to move beyond what I've called position-based stroke coaching. And that is judging where the arms are or the legs are in relation to the torso just because you saw some famous swimmer do that. If you see a swimmer swim like this, that doesn't mean you should do it. If you see a swimmer put their hands completely close together in the front, that doesn't mean you should do it. Through the history of swimming, we have copied the people who are the best swimmers at the time until someone comes along and completely revolutionizes the way it's done. All right? So I know you understand that second point. So the first thing I want to talk about this morning is the middle point, which is for you to understand how your swimmers are both sitting in the water and moving on the water. You have to understand what's on number 2 there, which is understanding the center of buoyancy, the center of gravity, and how those two things interact. Okay? All right. Now, think about this. Human being is laying flat on the water. Okay? Now really, not only can you imagine this, you've probably experienced this. Now your head, and what I call it's your head and neck together. They're one unit. And the head and neck, it's heavy. Your brain's in there. We humans have a pretty big brain. So when you think about it, the first area of your body, the head and neck, it wants to sink. It wants to fall towards the bottom of the pool. Second part of your body involves your lungs. All right? Now your lungs have air, and it floats. It wants to go up. And then obviously, someplace past where that flotation point is the whole rest of your body. Let's call it the lower third. And it wants to sink. You follow? So, we've got the first part that wants to sink. We've got the second part that wants to float. And we have the third big part that wants to sink. Okay? Now, when I'm standing here, and when I end up talking about all 4 strokes, I will show you where this point is all the time. We will have a center of mass, or a center of gravity, as I've written there. And that is kind of the midpoint of where your weight is. At the same time, we will have a center of buoyancy. The center of buoyancy is kind of the midpoint of part 2 that wants to float upward. All right? Now, if you're thinking about this a little bit, it's starting to get into your head. So if I have a center of buoyancy, and I have a center of mass, boom. How can I use those 2 facts to get me down the pool? The answer is kind of like a seesaw. What the 4 strokes involve doing is managing the difference between your center of buoyancy and your center of mass to move all this weight. I mean, you're moving the weight, but it's a lot easier to move the weight down the pool. What do you think of that? Put that idea in your head. Just think about it for a bit. Now, it's going to be a different solution. There'll be a different solution for freestyle, a different solution for backstroke, a way different solution for breaststroke, and a solution for butterfly. They will roughly be similar or equivalent for the long axis strokes, which is freestyle and backstroke, and the short axis strokes, which are breaststroke and butterfly. There will be 4 different solutions to that. But if you start to think in terms of the center of buoyancy and the center of gravity, you'll start to understand, I don't want to use the word propulsion mechanics, sorry, but the way of getting yourself down the pool. So keep that in mind. All right? Now, next, I'm going to try to show you a very, very short clip. Whoa. There we go. How come I can't see this on here? Oh, I know why. Sorry, there's my little thing. I'm going to have to close this down. going to show you. I'm going to show you a clip of 4 swimmers. And I picked these 4 swimmers. Well, I picked 3 of them for a reason. And the 4th one, it was the only thing I could get that was somewhat close. And all I want you to do, I'm just going to let this run for a little while. They're very short clips. And I just want you to look at these swimmers. But I want you to be thinking in your mind of what I just told you. Okay, I will show it again. But now I'm going to tell you a little bit about each one of the people I picked and why I picked them. The first swimmer that comes by is Adam Peaty of Great Britain, who, you know, has won the gold medal in breaststroke, and it seems to be a generation in front of everyone else. Now, I put him up there because his technique and way of movement is very, very, very good. It's based on strength and locking his body in, and I pretty much couldn't ignore it. Now, he is very different from a normal human being. Not so much in terms of size or his body ratios or anything like that, but he's incredibly strong. I will show you some other breaststroke videos that I use to teach breaststroke, but he is by far the greatest breaststroker going, so I wanted you to see that. The second person, and the reason I picked the next two boys is because they're from, well, not because, they actually are from China, but they got Olympic medals. One got a silver and one got a bronze in 100-meter events, and they're still teenagers. On top of that, they're not physical giants. They look no different. If they were standing right here, you wouldn't necessarily think one was an Olympic silver and one's Olympic bronze medalist. They look like normal kids. That's why I picked them. It would be easy to pick a 6'9" super giant and show you how they swim. But I thought it's far better to see how normal people who have figured out how to use their center of buoyancy, how to use their center of gravity, and how much better that can make them as athletes. Understand? So let's look again. Maybe I'll stop it and talk about it a little bit. All right, here's Mr. Peaty. Okay. That's pretty much as high on the water as you can possibly get, and be moving your arms that fast and legs for breaststroke. You can see that some physical gifts that he does have is that his legs, like a butterfly, curve in a little bit extra. So he gets a little bit extra on that kick. All right? Because his abs are so strong, he can support his center of mass, which is heavily weighted to the front of him because his upper body is so strong, but he can hold it on the surface of the water. And he's doing that pretty much through sheer strength. Let's watch a couple more cycles of Mr. Peaty. Okay. What I want you to notice here is the shape of his body. All right, now this guy, he goes 51 something for 100 meters backstroke and maybe 152 or 153. But look at him there. And how many of you are actually thinking that what you think you're seeing is his butt's dragging? Anybody think that? You can put your hand up if you do. All right, when I get to backstroke, I'm going to explain what you're actually looking at there. But for now, pay attention to his torso, where his arms and legs are in relation to the rest of his body. This guy, I've never seen anyone able to move his axial skeleton with as much dynamic movement as this kid. In the Olympics, he looked like a small guy next to a bunch of giants swimming his race. And I maintain if he would get interested in 200 butterfly, he would go much faster than this. There's only one thing. That's the position I really like. How high his hips are on the water. Again. Now, I don't know if you noticed this, but you see how his chest has made a big curve down there? But his hips are up high, and his abs are kind of pulling, or his abs are so tight that it's keeping that third part of his body up on the surface. What does that remind you of? Looks like Adam Peaty, doesn't it? I mean, really, if his head wasn't so low, if his head wasn't so buried, you could, if his head was higher, you could imagine him taking a breaststroke from that position, couldn't you? That's my one thing about him, is that he buries his head a little bit. And then this is James Guy from the UK. Now, these times that you see there, that's just the times they did at this one swim meet where I got the video from. But it's very, very clear underwater shots taken from, I believe, the Indianapolis pool, where Mr. Dale comes from. Now, to be brutally honest, when we get to describing that freestyle we see there, I'm going to make a lot of suggestions on how it could be better. It's very, very difficult for me to find anyone who swims freestyle to the extent that I think it could possibly be swum. So, for the first three, that's a little different. Okay? All right. Let me go back to the presentation. Where we were. Okay. All right. So, everybody's following along? Okay. So, currently, and you all as coaches, I think you need to start asking yourselves, is this how I look at swimming? Currently, coaches look at strokes as a combination of sequential body positions and applications of force. You know what that's like. Reach, pull, or even catch. And then, do things, apply force, push yourself back. But I think that is kind of looking at the trees and not really seeing the forest. All right, and the forest is what I told you before, which is the main force that's pulling against us is gravity, and the thing that is helping us is the support of flotation. And wedging gravity and flotation will help us propel the skeleton down the pool within the 4 strokes far better than just pulling on the water. Okay? And the way we do that, the way we do what I just said, is I think what the future holds for teaching strokes. So, the first thing you need to do is consider the underlying traits to the body and its movement. All right? And the main thing is the skeleton. So for backstroke and freestyle, my spine will be straight, and I have to use a rotary movement to get it to go down the pool. To get it to go down the pool. For breaststroke and fly, we're going to have what I call flexion and extension. And the best metaphor I can make is like snapping a whip, then stretching it out. Snapping a whip, stretching it out. Snapping a whip, stretching it out. Now, if we start with those big movements, then we can build a stroke around those big whole body movements. Okay? So, what I'm trying to tell you is that the torso is a propulsive tool itself. This part of me. This is the main part. I can use that to either make myself go this way or make myself go this way and get down the pool. The arms and legs integrate themselves into those big torso movements that I've just described. It's not the other way around. It's not about pulling your arms and then your body just goes with what's next. It's moving your body and having your arms support that body movement. That is super critical. I really hope you think about that and that you get that. It's the body that moves down the pool. The arms and legs support that. Okay? So, what you want to do is you want to focus on technique as a holistic movement and not separate body parts. You don't want to be thinking kicking, pulling, and then, I've made my legs stronger and I've done the kicking better, and that's going to, that will contribute to you going faster, but it's better if you can build up a stroke the whole body first. And when you ever are doing kicking and when you ever are doing pulling, you're doing it for the reason of integrating it into your axial skeletal movements. Okay? I haven't freaked anyone out yet? All right, let's press on. Now, we've got to think about how the body actually works. We're back to where we were yesterday. Okay? Now, you want to think of the natural shape and the plane of movement that you're going to use. All right. Now, for both freestyle and backstroke, the position you're going to try to create looks like this. It's not like this, and it's not even what you would consider to be completely straight. Can anybody guess why that might be? Why wouldn't, okay, first I would ask you, why anyone thinks perfectly straight is best? Hands up if you think that. Come on, sir. You think that? Okay, I'm going to tell you, that's not going to work because of what I said before. This part is falling, this part is rising, but this giant part wants to fall. You see it? Okay, if you go to try to go perfectly straight, you will eventually get this. In backstroke, if you try to go perfectly straight, you will get the legs falling down. Now, the answer to this is as old as human beings. Think about it. If straight was best, in my country, we have Native Americans, and they used to travel around our inland waterways on canoes. In Northern Europe, kayaks. I don't know what you have in Turkey, but when I say a boat shape, what I mean is a long, elongated, slightly curved shape. Because we know that travels on the water best. Now, the counterintuitive thing is, it's kind of the same shape for freestyle as backstroke, but for two different reasons. For backstroke, the shape, in fact, I'll just lay on the ground. Backstroke, you may remember, when you were little, there were lots of people who did this. Put the air in your lungs, float, head back, and swim. If you did that, your legs are sinking, and you're fighting the whole time to keep them up. If you make a slightly boat shape, eyes looking past your feet, you'll be amazed. Your legs will come right up. And the reason for that is that by making that tiny little change in shape, you're pushing the center of buoyancy down. The bubble that's here gets pushed downwards, and it helps lift your legs. Now, freestyle, it's kind of the opposite, but kind of the same. If you press your chest down a little bit, your center of buoyancy will also get pushed backwards, and it'll help your legs stay up. If instead you try to be too flat and push all that air forward, your legs will sink and you will rotate this way. Does everybody understand that? Consider it. And consider it, especially those of you who coach the younger kids. With the younger kids, you can see this in a heartbeat. In fact, once you start to understand, and I know you all can do it, once you all can understand how the center of buoyancy and how the center of gravity reacts to each other, you're going to be like, why didn't I think of this before? The reason you didn't think of it before, it's our fault. You read our foolish coaching books where we tried to draw little pictures of people swimming in these perfect positions along a page. Thankfully, the ancient peoples, they couldn't draw yet, so they didn't make boats that were based on pieces of paper, or they just sunk right to the bottom. All right, before I go farther, I want to give you a chance to ask me questions about free and back before I go to breast and fly. So think about that. Can we do that heady thing that I did yesterday? Does anyone ask me anything about free and back? And I've got to say, you guys, I really love questions. They make me happy. It makes me think that, okay, sir, you're first. They'll get you the thingy in a minute. If this, let me just say before he asks his question, if this seems strange to you, can you please put your hand up? If this really seems outrageous to anybody. No? That's good then. Good, good, good. Thank you, sir. Channel 2 again. Got it. Okay. Okay, my friend. But this isn't on yet. Okay. Your question. Go ahead. Oh. Can someone get him a microphone? I'm sorry to interrupt it, but I do think this is important.
Ufak yaş gruplarında vücudun yüzme noktasını ve batma noktasını kafa pozisyonlarıyla mı öğreteceğiz çocuğa yoksa torso pozisyonlarıyla mı?
Oh. No. 2. 1. 2. Okay, go. I can't hear. Got it. Yes. Mm-hmm. Torso. And can I thank you for asking that excellent question? Because the head is a good leader of things, and the body does follow the head. The problem is, if you get kids to start to only think about the head, they're too confused with the breathing in the head. If you teach with the torso, then you can tell them to fit the breathing within the axial movement. Okay? Great question. Anyone else? That was a fabulous question. All right, is everybody following me along there for free and backstroke? Okay, let's talk about fly and breaststroke. All right, now, as I said, freestyle and backstroke, they're pretty much happening on one plane. Do you know what I mean by plane? Like we're going in one direction and there's one set of movements going either this way or this way. For fly and breaststroke, that's not happening. Now, we're going to go through 2 or more planes for that to happen. To do fly and breaststroke effectively requires breaks in the plane due to the wave-like motions you're going to make with your body. And in the case of breaststroke, you're trying to match the wave-like motions of the water. Now, your goal in breaststroke and fly when doing that is to maintain balance. To maintain the balance both below and above the line that you're swimming, so that the combination of the wedge of buoyancy and gravity one way and the other way balances out to get you your forward propulsion. Okay? Okay, breathing. Back to that gentleman's question. Breathing has to be matched into the torso's rhythm. Natural inhales and exhales become part of the stroke movement. That's why you teach with the torso first and not the head position. Already, as human beings, you know, we have a tendency to just grab a breath whenever our head is above the surface. But if you start teaching kids how to balance themselves while moving through the water and fitting the breath in there, you get a better swimmer. The current breathing that we do actually is limited to the upper lungs and creates body stiffness. Now, literally in our lives, most of the time, human beings, we just do what experts call emergency breathing. You're all probably doing it right now. You just breathe in the upper part of your lungs. But really, we should be doing deeper breathing. And in the water, breathing is so important for this reason. When you're breathing on land, let me get this right. When you inhale, it's a relaxation of a muscle. You relax a muscle, the air goes inside and inflates your lungs. But in the water, we can't really do that because the water is already pressing on those muscles. So for us to exhale, we actually have to push the water away to get the air inside of us, to exhale, sorry. And that is why when you're teaching the little ones, the most important thing you can do is get them to exhale in the water. In the water. Exhale in the water. As soon as you can, for as long as you can. Now I do a little trick. where we make the kids walk around the pool kind of on the first day. And I get them to count the amount of inhales versus exhales they take on a certain footfall. So I'm like, okay, every time your left foot touches the ground, are you breathing in or breathing out? And the more that they are breathing out as a percentage of the total, I know that they're going to have a far easier time integrating breathing and swimming. The more it's the other way, the more it's inhales, I know it's the more work I have to do. Okay? All right. Let's go stroke by stroke. Okay. Remember, freestyle. What I said was that, you know, it's a rotation that's taking you down the pool. All right, and the rotary power and propulsion comes from what we call moment arm transfer. All right, and the perception of transfer of movement from one arm to the other. What that means is, you're holding on to the water with one arm, all right, and it's the moment arm transfer from one arm to the next arm, to the next arm, to the next arm. Remember I talked about climbing the rope. And it's how we feel that, how we feel about moving and letting go right before the next one comes. That's what separates good swimmers and from great swimmers in freestyle. But I will tell you, in the longer races, we still have so much more potential to improve in freestyle. Because the thing that stands in our way of doing that even better is our breathing. All right? Now, when I go back and show you, I won't do it right now, but when I go back and show you those videos I just showed you before, and we look at James Guy again, swimming freestyle, you will clearly see that on one arm, it's fantastic the way he changes from one arm to the next. But when he goes from this side to this side, it's not quite as good. The reason? And that guy is, you know, world champion in 200 freestyle. I think he got a bronze medal in one of the Olympics in 400 freestyle. And even at that level, the human urge to take a breath when it is available is nearly unstoppable. And the way to make someone better than him 8 years from now is for one of you all to make sure that some little 10-year-old kid exhales absolutely as much as possible when they're little. With me on that? Okay. That second thing's important. What we call the high side movement from the space to the water throws the weight forward. What I mean by that is, here's the swimmer. They've got this water pretty good. Their arms are up. You don't want to do either of these two things. You don't want to be like, wait, and go down. You don't want to do that. Also, even if you're smart enough to get your head back, you don't want to just let gravity float your arm down. What you really want to do is what's in number one. You want to have perception of the transfer from one side of your body to the other. And the way to do that is to actually attack from here to here. So you can get from one arm to the second arm. Remember, if we were climbing a rope, it would be the same thing. If you were climbing a rope for your life, you'd grab it, you'd start to pull it, but as soon as you felt, as soon as you had perception that now I can change my attention from pulling up with this arm to getting the next arm, you're now 7 inches higher. You see that? And it's the same going this way. Following that? And that's the main movement for freestyle. The main movement. Now, here's some extra things. Well, they're not extra, but, I mean, they are extra. And it's not that they're non-important, but to do this really well, you want to maintain springiness throughout your body. You want to have energy in it. And the places where energy disappears first, the hips. We get so focused on our arms and even our center of buoyancy and mass that we let things drift in this hip area and then things start to fall. If you just keep a little bit of springiness in here while you're doing all these other big, important, and great things, there's less tendency for you to fall down. Springiness in your hips, in your knees, and in your ankles. It's never too early to teach kids to think like that. We also want to pay attention to the flow of water along the backs of the legs, the sides of the body, and the backs of the arms. Now, that sounds a little spooky, but there's a reason for it. If kids pay attention to those things, it increases the perception of what is actually happening with them. If they pay attention to what's happening in the backs of their legs, the natural result is they start to feel when it sinks. Then if they can feel that they're sinking, they can make adjustments with the front part of their body. They can make a better shape. They can push their chest down. They can have moment transfer. And they can move, they can make their situation better. But when they're 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, it's hard for them to understand these big concepts. But the beautiful thing about human beings is we don't need all the words. We have enough in the feelings. Your job and my job as coaches is to tell them what to pay attention to so that those feelings can be engaged, so they can send messages to their brain, and so their brain can make compensations. Does that make sense? Okay. I'm skipping that because I will show you videos later. Next is backstroke. Backstroke. You want to make a curved shaped body with the arc of the curve into the water rather than upwards. The curve is down here. It'll be at the top of my spine. Not the very, very top, but a little bit downwards. And even when I say that, I am careful to not point to a certain thing. If somebody would ask me, exactly what vertebrae will the curve be at? I would get upset. Because now you're looking for an exact degree position. And it will be different depending if your torso is super long or super short. compared to your legs. Where the curve is the exact point that makes your legs float up. Now, as simple as this sounds, I know no better way of saying it. What's really happening is you make this boat shape with your body, and then you row the boat. That's all you're doing. And remember yesterday, I talked about the curvilinear movement, and there's a slight curve in your arm just from standing here in your normal human position. Well, it's the same when you're swimming backstroke. You do not want to overstretch and make big up and down movements. There will be some up and down depending on how your body lies in the water. But you don't want to make it over dramatic, and you don't want to make it overstretched. Because every time you're in the overextended position, muscles turn off in your body. Just like they did with that lady there when she stood and tried to push against me. When there's a tiny little bit here for her to row, she's strong. When it gets locked out, she's weaker. Again, just like freestyle, you want to keep a springy feeling in your hips, in your ankles, and in your knees. Okay? Let me ask you this question. How many people use flippers in their practice? Hands up. Fins or flippers? Use them? How many? Oh, there we go. Now, I use them too. But you need to be really careful. Really careful. Because if you use them too much, or you don't explain this concept to the kids, they start to do this with their feet. And this is not good. It's not like Sea Hunt or, I'm showing my age there, Dale. It's not like an underwater diving movie. You need to keep springiness in your ankles so that your kick's like this. There can be a little bit of movement, but not all that. Because that is where you leak energy. You leak energy in your ankles, you leak energy in your knees, you leak energy in your hips. Or your pelvis, I should say. That's why yesterday, when you saw those little kids doing black cord, it's all based on having your hips and your pelvis as spread out can be, as engaged as they could be. So in dryland, my kids are learning to have their pelvis engaged and have that springy feeling. When they take it to the water, they keep it there as well. Don't tell a backstroker to be long. And by that, usually what I mean by that is, big breath up top, big reach in the back, stretch, super stretch. No. Because if you do that, you'll break the center of mass that you made in the boat shape. And that's the beginning of deceleration. That's the beginning of losing speed. The best way you can deal with that is tempo and timing. I try to tell the kids that you should have a rhythm to your stroke that you can hear. Maybe it's or But it's a rhythm that they can first understand, then that they can maintain, and then that they can control. Understand, maintain, and ultimately control their rhythm or tempo, whatever you want to call it. That's the key really to improving in in backstroke and freestyle. Especially backstroke. And this is a little extra trick, and this is hard for them to think about. But again, when you're teaching them young, you want their rib cage to be pushed down. You want their ribs to stay in and work with their torso. So even though they're breathing in or taking in a breath, the breath comes up to the lungs, but the ribs stay down. If you spread the ribs too much, that whole sinking process that I described in the beginning will start to happen. If you make the curve shape and breathe with your rib cage in, you can go for far, far longer. Because when you spread, the center of mass drops. When you keep this in, the center of mass, it's like a big bowling ball. It stays in the boat. It stays in the boat. Okay? Question time. Come on now. I love those questions. Freestyle and backstroke. Anyone? Sir again? Red jacket man? Don't, I want lots of people to ask lots of questions. Don't let one or two hog them up. So think about it if you have it.
Çok uzun süredir, ufak yaştan beridir devamlı paletle çalışmış bir grubun ayaklarını nasıl düzeltebilirim? Yani çok uzun süredir paletle çalıştıkları için ayağını tekrar forma sokmak için ne yaptırabilirim?
You have to take the fins off. You have to take the fins off. You have to stop using them for a while.
Yani kendiliğinden mi düzelecek ben çıkartınca?
Yes. Again, here's the thing about a lot of the equipment in swimming. Equipment in swimming is usually invented to make the act of swimming easier. That's why fins were invented. They're invented for frogmen who didn't swim every day, and when they're underwater, they wanted to be able to make one kick and have it go extra far. Pull buoys, the same thing. Kickboards, the same thing. The problem is with all the equipment, you can use them to assist you in teaching. That's great. But the problem is if you use them too much, people start to think they're training with their toys. You'll get better at using fins, but that may not make you better at swimming. So you have to have the right balance between using the equipment to perhaps make something better or to make them understand, but you cannot ignore the skeletal movement in any of the four strokes. You can't ignore that. And what happens is people wearing fins, all of a sudden, skeleton gets all jiggly. And then when you go to race, oh, what happened? Okay? Other questions? Free and back before I move to breast. Who's got their hand up? Okay, yeah. Oh, I didn't see in the light.
Serbest çalışmalarda yakalama çalışmalarını yapmamızı öneriyor musunuz? Bir diğer soru da Nefesleri hızlandırmak için hangi çalışmaları yapabiliriz? Nefes alma sırasında yavaş olmamaları için.
Okay, yeah, I'm thinking about what he means, but I'll answer the second one first. In terms of getting your head back in the breathing, I have two suggestions. One is just tell them to get their head back. You know, once you understand where they're going wrong, you can just fix it. So what you will see is that they go like this, they take a breath, but they resist going back here to exhale. So they're going to let this, either let gravity take it, or they're going to watch their hand and they're going to take all that time to get back. Just don't let them. When I'm on the side of the pool, I make this sign. And they're like, oh, there goes Chris again. They know what that means. That means put your head down before your arm gets there. All right? And it just went out of my mind. Sorry, it just went out. So you just want to make sure that they get their head back. Oh, I know. Then the second thing is to tell them, and I think someone else asked me this yesterday. Say they do a 25, and their time is, well, I don't even like to do their time, but they go as fast as they can. And you know their time is 12.5 seconds. Then I tell them, okay, 12, whatever the time is, now you have to get close to that time, but you have to breathe every stroke. Every stroke. So I say, okay, now you have to do 13-1 or whatever you have to do, but you have to breathe 10 times. Now see, that sounds crazy. Everybody thinks, why would you make someone breathe more? You make someone breathe more sometimes so that they get better at the act of doing that. And the only way they're going to do that more times better is by exhaling. Because they can't go like this 10 times without exhaling. They'll drown, they'll lose their breath. Now, the first part of your question involved catching something. And I'm not sure what you... Oh, yeah. Me personally, I hate that. And I would advise people not to do catch-up freestyle. I don't really see the point of it at all. What we thought was that it would make your pull pattern better. But it's the exact opposite of everything I just said. And even this guy, and I'm not criticizing him, he has an Olympic medal, but I still think he could be faster if on one side of his body he didn't lay there for that time and wait, and leave his arm out and have the other one almost get there. Because really, when you stop and think about it, maybe after this I'll play it again, why does one arm move so quickly and the second arm moves so slowly? And what you'll notice is when people are swimming 50 free and 100 free, they never do that, right? Do you ever see anyone do 100 free and go? The only person who got stuck doing that was Ian Thorpe, and he struggled. So if you wouldn't do that for 100, why would you do it for a 400? The only reason you do it is to get more air. It's not even to get more air. It's to hold on to the air that you already have and avoid exhaling. So even at that Olympic level, it all goes back to you all when you first get them, before they can even swim. If you can get them to blow all that air out, that is something that will last them for the rest of their swimming lives. Okay? All right, I got to go faster. Okay. Now, some of this I already talked about. Good. Where does the stroke begin? We're talking about breaststroke and butterfly now. Where does the stroke begin? How do we move down the pool? What are you looking at to identify success and speed? Those are the 3 questions you need to ask when you're analyzing or teaching breaststroke and fly. Now, breaststroke. Oof. What you're doing with breaststroke is you're getting the body's mass down the pool. You're not pulling it down the pool. You're not. You aren't going, And this is what I always tell my kids. I'm a fat dude, and I say, imagine I swallowed a big bowling ball. And it's sitting right here. Now, I got to get that all the way down there. How am I going to do that? I certainly don't want to pull it all that way. So really what I'm going to do in breaststroke is I'm going to lift it up and push it forward. Each stroke. Pop, push. Imagine a water polo ball. You pop it up, you push it forward. You create energy and you use energy to move the torso forward. Basically, very roughly, it's like this. Here, you do nothing. You're just getting ready. Because think about it. Right? Right? What happens? What happens? Nothing. I can't split myself in half. This way, both ways? No. So, this is the setup. Create the energy, use it forward. It's actually quite simple. You're picking that bowling ball up, you're pushing it forward. Your legs support that main axial movement. When do you kick? When it's time to go forward, your legs just help this thing go forward. There's really no pull, kick, like I pull and I kick and then I put it together. Someone asked me about the kinetic chain yesterday. Excuse me. They were dead right. It's like making a whip. I actually happen to be very good friends with the man who pretty much invented the breaststroke that we do now. Joseph Nagy from Hungary, and it is he who's helped me understand this more than anything. We are trying to match the wave of the water as it goes by us. Really what we're doing in the metaphor I just used is we're lifting that bowling ball up. That will make a little bit of a wave behind us, and as that wave goes forward, we launch or lunge the bowling ball forward. Now, this is a key concept at the bottom. Let the water shape the kick rather than the kick shape the water. By that I mean, when your feet come up, they turn out, they're going to grab the water, whatever water is left. And unfortunately, or fortunately, that's going to depend on a lot of things. If your arms are super long, your lunge forward will take a long time. A little bit of surge of water will go back. That water will be thick. So tall breaststrokers, you sometimes see they catch a lot of water as they move it back. Shorter people with shorter torsos, shorter people that have shorter legs and long torsos, there's not a whole lot of water left. All the water's moving as they go forward, so you'll see their kick go a lot faster. Now, the mistake we make is thinking that those things are just random things. Oh, that guy's kick is fast. Oh, that guy's kick is long. Those statements are true, but you really want to understand why they are true. And why they are true will be about because of the length of the relationship between their arms, their legs, and their torso to their overall height. And what I hope that you all do is get good at understanding those ratios and constructing a stroke that works. Butterfly. Okay, the engine of butterfly is in the hip activity. From your mid-thigh to your ribs, from here to here. This is the part of the skeleton that has to snap. Now the tempo center, the snapping of that whip. So if your body's a whip and this is the part that's whip, then from your armpits to the collarbone to the forehead, that's the whip handle. That's the part that's going to set the whip. Okay? Now, what you need to do is you need to control the whip. You don't want to, how can I say this? You don't want to overdo it each way. You know, it's like jumping rope. You want to get the perfect jump rope. If you're cracking a whip over and over again, there'll be a certain tempo that goes really well. If you do it too hard, then the whip gets all out of line. The way you control that is by not pushing back too far. Literally, get it, move it, let it go. Get it, move it, let it go. Get it, move it, let it go. I call that spinning away. Here's an idea to think about. You know, a bicycle wheel. Imagine a bicycle wheel. Now imagine the bicycle wheel laying on the ground here. Got that? Now imagine two bicycle wheels laying on the ground. Okay? I'm going to get the water. I'm going to move the water. And when it gets back to, when I pass my armpits and collarbone and get a little bit down there, I'm going to spin that wheel. I'm going to spin that wheel and get my arms away. I'm not going to push too far because then I'm going to teeter and totter. Ooh, sorry. That's a children's game we play. Sorry. I'm going to be too far up, too far down. I'm going to lose my whole snapping rhythm. And finally, what you want to do there is you want to land, when it's time to land back on the water, you want to land as close to in one piece as you possibly can. You do not want to land bent or bent. You want to land all at once. Away, all at once. Away, land all at once. Sorry, I keep walking that way. I'll walk this way next time for the people sitting on this side. Okay. Exhaling is vital to swimming performance. I've said that about 100 times, so I guess you don't need to hear that. over time, carbon dioxide builds up in the bloodstream and the lungs. Now, really, and this is the thing, you don't really need to breathe. We know from blood chemistry that if your life depended on it, you could be down there for a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes. But the brain, it does, anytime breathing isn't immediate and total, it sends a message to your brain and goes, hey, 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 breathe. So it's a sensation. Now, the more carbon dioxide you get out of your body, the less that signal gets sent to your brain. And better still, the younger you can get kids to do that and think about that, the better off they'll be when they grow up. If you just move on to the next thing, they'll always have that, ooh, this breath took less than 1 second, I need to get another one. But if you can get them to go 1.1 seconds, breathing through their mouth, exhaling CO2 into the water, and then it's no big deal, that's going to magnify and magnify and magnify throughout their career. Swimmers must be comfortable with breathing in order to swim optimally. I already told you that. In distance swimming and in training, the normal response to stress is to save breath. If you were walked up here right now and I pretended to go, boom, pop you in the stomach, first thing you do is go, anything. If someone yelled fire, you do that. If you heard a loud noise, you do that. Any stress the human organism comes into contact with, that is primary brain reaction numero uno, number one, is save breath. You don't know when the next one's coming. And we need to de-stress that. And I start most of my workouts with some kind of breathing work. Either just telling them what to do, either in dry land or in swimming, but I try to get them thinking about their breathing pattern on the first little set. It directly impacts the central nervous system, restores pH balance, and assists with everything. Underwater swimming. You see all these videos of people going underwater now, especially in short course. These are some things that are helpful, should be helpful to you. The idea is to carry the push-off velocity, not increase it. Remember, when you dive in, that's the fastest you're ever going. The second fastest you're ever going is when you push off the wall. What you want to do is carry that velocity for a little bit longer. You don't want to make it faster because you pretty much can't. You're better off carrying that velocity. Now, the thing though about the underwaters is they do have a cost, an energy cost. And in your training, and we'll talk about that, in the second part, you need to deal with that. I'm not so sure how hard and fast I am about this, but roughly 1 body length off the wall is when you should start vibrating your body, not before. People push off and start kicking real fast, that's not really going to work. Mobility on land helps you with moving underwater. Remember, for all 4 of your strokes, they have an engine, they have a rhythm and a tempo, and they have a line. So, obviously, freestyle this line, backstroke this line. Breaststroke, you're going away from the line, back to the line. Away from the line, back to the line. And it's the same for fly. You need to think about where the line is. Have I moved above it? Below it, do I get back to it? And basically, you ruthlessly exploit that over and over and over again. Last thing there is be aware of the interplay between distance per stroke, the length of the stroke, and the tempo. There is a relationship. And the relationship is sort of defined by the energy spent. You know, if you're jumping rope, there's a certain tempo that you can do for a long time. If it's a race to see how many you can do, you have to judge how tight, how many strokes I'm going to take, how much energy it takes to take those strokes, and can I pay for that in the terms of energy? Okay, let's look at some more clips. I'm going to show you. All right, let's look at those guys go again, first of all. It should look a little bit different now. There's Mr. Petey. There's Mr. Shue. There's Mr. Lee. And Mr. Guy, who I'm going to stop. Now, there's your catch-up freestyle there a little bit. But what I want to show you is, stop, will you? Okay, now watch. You see his head is completely out of the water. And this is a top-level swimmer. But I kind of wish I could see more of his face in there. Now, watch this arm. The one that's in the water, which is his left arm. Now watch how quickly it moves through. Boom. Now this one doesn't. So one arm goes through real fast, and the other one goes less fast. Boom. Lay. Fast lay. You see how that goes? And that's all because of the breathing. It's all because of the breathing. All right. I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you something that's quite amazing. If I can. Look at this. I still maintain this is 20-some years ago. But to me, this is the best long course breaststroker who ever lived in terms of a pure stroke. That's a guy called Mike Barrowman. I went to the Olympics with him. But what I want you to see is this is one sequence of a stroke, one stroke cycle, taken with a high-speed camera. And here's what I want you to notice. This is someone who learned to absolutely control their breathing. Okay, first slide, head down. Second slide, look how far out he's gotten. Third slide, head is still not up, and he has turned the corner and is coming in. No breath yet. This is from the front view. Now, the arms have made the turn, and it's only here in that second slide. He's still coming in, still no mouth. Still no mouth. Only until he gets to that position right there has the breathing started. This is it from the top. Now watch this. Now this is going forward. See how the goggles are facing down? Now look at that. Then there goes the lunge forward. Look at how dry the back is. See how dry that back is? And then look at this photo. Look at that. All that is above the water. No drag. And then if that hasn't freaked you out, have you ever seen feet grab onto water like that? And then finally, penultimate position. Look how much is on the surface of the water. And then look, even to the point where he streamlines and puts his feet all the way together. Now that stroke was created by the actual inventor of the wave breaststroke. And that was his sort of greatest devotee. Okay. Now, I'm going to stick with breaststroke again, and I'm going to show you, these days, this is the video that I use to teach young kids breaststroke, and it's a Japanese swimmer who broke the world record for the 200 breaststroke. He didn't get... He went to the Olympics, but he didn't really get a medal. But for one day, boy, he had the best stroke ever. And you might want to have a look at this, because I always pick videos of normal-sized people. This is just a guy. The reason I pick them and show them is because I'm sure that you have swimmers that will grow to be this size. They don't need to be super giants. And also because the camera stays on this guy the whole time. Let's skip ahead. Oh, wait. Let's go back. Let's go back. Don't worry, I'll get to the other strokes as well. Now, something really interesting will happen here on the second lap, and I want you to see it. I'm glad there's a bunch of people screaming in Japanese here, so I'm glad there's no sound. Now, this is different than Adam Peaty, because in the 200 breaststroke, strength does not become as important as drag limitation. So these people have to have a really efficient stroke. This is why you see them so high on the water. Now, if you watch, you couldn't really see it on the second lap, but you'll see it on the third. This guy, he takes 16 strokes every lap, and what he does is at every 25 meters, he resets and ups his tempo for the second half of the lap. And I think that's absolutely brilliant. Now watch. After there, now he goes a little faster. There, 1, 2. You see that? You see that? He just jumped on it. And then he sets his rhythm again. Now that's a huge amount of discipline to understand that his tempo was starting to deteriorate. And in the middle of the lap, with no wall, he just decides, no, I'm picking my rate back up to my optimal stroke rate. Now he's going all for it. There you go. Keep that in your mind. Now I'm going to show you this is the backstroker that we saw. Okay? I think he's Olympic silver medalist. Now I want you to watch him swim 100 back. He'll be in lane 4. And I just want you to watch how smooth this stroke is. I wish the picture was a little better, but I did find a way to get around that. You see the tempo control? And I want you to think about the slight boat shape. His eyes are looking back towards his feet, not straight up to the ceiling. Okay? Now, yeah, 52 for that swim. Now, I have another picture of him swimming slower. I think it's the prelims of that. And I'm going to show you that so that you can see the same swimmer but going slower. This is a close-up. These are closer. See? Boat shape. You see the kid next to him is taking a lot more strokes. His eyes are looking farther back. He's breathing higher up in his lungs, and his legs are going to get tired. I just really want you to see that boat shape and how effective it can be. He's not going his fastest. This will only be like 55 seconds because it's a prelim swim. See that? I'm just showing you these so you can ask me some questions in a bit. All right. I'm going to show you. This is the fly guy that we saw on the original clip. Come on, get up there. Now remember, this is the upside to what you saw underwater. Think about the line, how closely he stays to the line, not too much up, not too much under, lets the stroke go early like we saw underwater. And I think even that's like 51 seconds. Yeah. Okay, I'll stop that for now. Now, what I'll do is we'll have break time for a few minutes, Then when you come back, you can ask me some questions about this, and then we'll move on to training. Okay? All right. Coffee time.